So I feel like we can't really make mistakes. That mistakes seem to really be sort of like an effort of perspective. That something can only be a mistake if you look at it as a mistake. That if someone decides they're gonna race cars, and their very first race, they get in an accident and they lose their legs. Um, by the eyes of a lot of people, that would be, oh man, that person made a mistake. That person wasn't prepared to do this thing. All these things that we tell ourselves, and it led up to a mistake, obviously. But maybe for the person who got in the accident, maybe by getting into that accident, they went to a particular hospital, and it turned out that the nurse that was taking care of him was someone that aligned with them in so many ways that if you fast forward a few years later, they ended up getting married, and then they stayed together for the rest of each other's lives, or for the rest of the life of whoever checked out first. That if you look at it from like a grander perspective, in a sense, it's like, hey, you know what? It wasn't a mistake. It was an event with consequences that maybe most of us wouldn't consciously sign up for, but that led to a place that was significantly valuable. And so, you see, here's the thing where it comes to mistakes, in which mistakes can only be mistakes in the immediate moment, and only in the immediate moment if you're thinking about the future. But only in the immediate moment if you're thinking about the future, and only in the past if you are attaching it to where you are today. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you cannot truly define what a mistake is. You cannot truly define what was the right or the wrong thing to do, because it becomes really muddy. What there's millions of people around the world, and there's millions of people around the world doing things, and on top of that, there's animals, and then there's nature, and there's all kinds of things, all kinds of things playing roles into the way in which the world unfolds, the way in which history unfolds. So there's not really one thing that caused everything else. There's a slew of events that led to another set of events, that led to another set of events, that led to what could be considered a mistake. But the initial slew of events is as much the mistake as the mistake is everything that happened before it that led to it. Now, we can't really see what the heck, like, how things all line up. So if it then comes down to the only definition that we have is how we look at things, and then our overview of the world, that ends up being the true definition of what it is that is right or wrong, or a mistake or not a mistake, then I guess it means that, in a sense, that we cannot be absolutely sure that we are correct. That it sort of leads us to the initial example of, it might look like something really bad, but it's gonna lead into things that, with the right outlook, might just make it worth it. That if the person would have been like, oh man, now my life is fucked and all these things, maybe they would have been in a position in which they wouldn't have recognized that the person that was taking care of them at the hospital was someone with whom they could have had an incredible life with. That with just a simple with just a simple little outlook of saying, hey, you know what, I did this thing and the outcome was not the one I hoped, but now from this lesson I can move forward, and I can make decisions that are slightly better, or that are slightly different, or now I know that I won't make this mistake twice, or all these things in which we can go ahead and from something that might seem like a negative pull out a positive, and sometimes a huge fucking positive. I think we can really change the perspective, and we can really um, show that in many ways we cannot make mistakes. Um, which I think would also be of extreme value to a lot of people who feel like not only are they going around making mistakes, but they feel like the mistakes are defining them. They feel like maybe the actions that they're doing or the person who they are is a mistake, that something is somehow wrong with them. But I think if it really does not take much for one to be able to start recognizing um, the things that happen in our favor in every action and in every reaction, that eventually it almost seems like it eventually becomes really hard um, to see things as absolutely um, bad or unfortunate, because you can always find some golden nugget on it. And I don't think it's a thing of sort of like um, thinking positively, or like thinking happily, or however it is that we sometimes put it. I think it's a very simple thing of, this is how your brain works. Then that in many ways your senses, the things that you're paying attention to, are so the way I kind of like look at the brain is, we have our conscious brain, which is the brain that you're probably using right now, to think and react to how these words are resonating or not resonating, or whatever it is these words are doing to you. And then there is the subconscious, or some people call the superconscious, which is the thing that's doing all the processing. It's figuring out what the heck are words, how are they put together, what do they mean, how do they're putting all these things together, right? But I think at the same time, the subconscious is grabbing all the information. It is reading information from the room you're in. It is listening to all the conversations that are happening around you. It is seeing all the things that are happening around you. It's paying attention to what everyone around you is wearing, what kind of shoes they're wearing, do their socks match. It's doing all these things. However, your conscious side is not aware of all these things. But all it takes is for your subconscious to know that those are things that you find of importance. So the same thing kind of comes to this, that if you are kind of like down in the trenches with things that are happening that seem like mistakes, and then you let your subconscious know that, hey, pass me some of the information of what are great things that are happening that I'm not noticing out of this moment, you suddenly start to notice them. And then as you build that awareness, the subconscious is like, oh shit, okay, this is working out. This is definitely is information that is useful for me to pass along to the other department. And then it starts to happen more, and it starts to happen more. So it's not that suddenly more things start happening to you that cause gratefulness, but that you suddenly develop the awareness or the attunement to appreciate them, because before you didn't know. It's almost like you didn't have a language for them, so you there's a part of your brain that never sent you the information because it didn't think that it was what you wanted. It didn't seem like it was what you wanted to be paying attention to. And as you shift what it is that you want to pay attention to, everything around you sort of like moves with you. So overall, I feel extremely confident that there's no such thing as mistakes. That more importantly, there are no people who are mistakes, and there are no people who have things wrong with them. That all we have are people who look at the world slightly different or significantly different, but we're still all here in this boat together, and those differences aren't a reason for separation. I think they're the opposite. They're more like a reason for they're even more of a reason for us to maybe collaborate more, because what it means is that the more that we appreciate the way different people look at things, the more we appreciate how we look at things, and the more complete of a picture that we can build